Hello and welcome back to another video from the Double Pivot Podcast. Today we're going to be covering the best fixtures, who's got the best, who's got the worst, and who's got the most underrated. To help me today, usually I've got my sidekick, FPL Discomfort, but you'll notice there's another gentleman across from me. I dare say a more attractive gentleman. Don't tell Kieran I said that, Mark. It's McBride. It's McBride. Mate, how are you doing? Thanks very much for coming along.
Yeah, no, but it's nice to be on with somebody who knows how to do a live stream. To be honest, I've got obviously do some stuff on my own channel. I have no idea how to do live stream and stuff, so everything comes out. It comes out. I record it and I put it out as is. I don't really edit things, but yeah, it's nice to be on with somebody who can do that. And actually, that picture of me that you've stolen, I think somebody's AI'd that up a wee bit to
I've stolen
the furrowed forehead, my forehead doesn't actually look like that, but you need a bit of
Looks good, mate. Looks good. Yeah, that's it. Listen, for those who don't know yourself, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your channel, and what you're primarily. We get kind of a little switch over between So Rare and FPL. Predominantly more FPL in here, so don't switch off, people. So yeah, just chat to everyone and tell everyone what you're all about.
all about. Aye, I mean, funnily enough, actually, like when I started on Sorare like 5 years ago, I think it's like just over 5 years ago. I hadn't played a lot of fantasy football at that point, so I've been kind of there was that like other platforms you used to have like Footstock and Football Index and stuff like that, and I sort of stumbled on Football Index and I really enjoyed that, and then. At that point, obviously, you're just kind of going backwards and forwards between different things, and then Sorare kind of became the main like platform I did well on, or obviously sort of been on a lot. And then obviously they got the English Premier League on there too. So naturally, obviously there's crossover and everything there. In terms of the main FPL site, like I don't really have much of a sort of history on there. Did for a couple of years do like the season long game and stuff on Fan Team, which I know it's changed a bit this season, but like a couple of years ago the rules on Fan Team were pretty identical to FPL. It was quite pick up and play, pay a tenner, first prize 20 grand or whatever, like, and then obviously there was lots of entries and things like that. So yeah, I do a lot of fancy football stuff now. The channel's obviously McBride's. That's like it was a bit of a slow burner at the start. I'm not amazing at editing videos and stuff, but the Sorare stuff recently, I did a video recently doing some of the Sorare crafting and it said 3,600 views. So that's like a huge improvement. I'm not a millionaire or anything yet. I might actually make a profit on YouTube this year. I don't know, but and you can see from the room, I'm a big Celtic fan. So one of the reasons, like I really like obviously Sorare is that everybody loves the EPL, watch all games at the weekend. It doesn't really matter what's happening, whatever the 4:30 game is on a Sunday or whatever. I'm usually sitting down, right, get the game on. But obviously, from a Sorare point of view, the big attraction for me is obviously they've got the SPFL, so you can get in among Celtic and Rangers and all that sort of stuff and enjoy that. And I've had a bit of success at it. So yeah, we're going to talk about FPL and everything tonight. I'll need to get my finger out with my.
That's it. No, if you've not seen Mark McBride, go over on X, go on YouTube, like you're saying, really good videos. Does really well on them, which is always good. If you watch for the FPL and they're not doing that well, you're a bit like to watch. But yeah, like I'm saying, a bit of a crossover between Sorare and FPL. But tonight we're here in Wenley to talk about FPL. And with that, stick around because at the end or near the end, we're going to discuss a little bit of help from AI and see if we correlated with what we think in terms of fixtures, who's got the best, who's got the worst, and who's got the most underrated. Just a few hellos in the chat. Wade Wilson, Geddy, Discomfort, Com, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Again, leave comments in the bottom and see if you agree with us or disagree. Probably more disagree, which I do like, Mark. I like more people disagreeing because then I need to get my point more across.
Get that furrowed brow out and like,
right. So what we're going to do to start off, again, more for the benefit as well, people on Spotify, is we're just going to cover what happened last season, Mark. Really. Now we know Liverpool won, granted, but we just want to have a quick recap, a quick look of how each team done in terms of goals scored, goals conceded, home, all that kind of thing. All right. So the first kind of two slides I've got, the first main slide is the overall table. We've got the top 10. Obviously, Liverpool finished first. just put Arsenal for the title. City, not as good. Chelsea, and then Newcastle rounding off the top 5. We've got the likes of Bournemouth and Brentford squeezing into the top 10, and Forest just kind of waning off of what I thought they were going to get Champions League football, but they kind of just missed out. In terms of top 10, talk to me about the top 10. Did you think Liverpool were going to win the league? Did you think Chelsea were going to top 4? What did you think was going to happen? Did it match what you thought?
I think Liverpool were a wee bit of a surprise package one. I mean, obviously Arne Slot was coming in, and you're thinking like, Jurgen Klopp's going, and they didn't really sort of buy anybody of note either. So you're thinking, there's not been a lot of big moves or anything there. But I think he came in obviously, and he put in his style of play, and they get a good start, and then they were pretty solid from there. So yeah, I mean they had just had an incredible season, obviously overall. And really need to talk about Mo Salah, do we? Everybody knows who Mo Salah is, but and then
there's a lot of people thinking about going without him this season, Mark, which will be news to you. Which is yes.
I suppose he's quite expensive now as well, isn't he? So I mean, they've really kind of got it to the point where it's becoming an actual decision, because so I haven't really done much with my own draft. Like obviously you'll cover years later, but it's just the actual expense of how much he's going to be if he sort of blanks, etc., which didn't happen a lot last season. But and
you've seen that, like to cover that first. I went against Haaland at the start, and it hurt me. But listen, nobody thought Haaland was going to go on the burner that he did at the start. Listen, he's a fantastic player, but even his owners were like, "Wow!" It was literally every shot. Do you remember? I was watching him like that, and every time he shot, I was raging. Mate, remember talking? And I was like, "Oh, he's had one touch." I mean, he's class. Only needs one touch, but even the most adamant Haaland fan was in dreamland, and I think it only works if they're firing like that, because they're so expensive. But I think the midfield helps. With Salah gets an extra points here and there. Off the clean sheet, and it helps him with the bonus. So I think that did help. And in the end, I don't want to say I was right in the end, but because I was too far behind there anyway. But yeah, Salah did kind of come out overall victor. Again, Man City kind of dropped off. But yeah, you're right in what you're saying. Liverpool, they were a bit of a surprise package. Everyone kind of wrote them off because Klopp had come. Obviously, Slot's come in, and listen, Slot's done a fantastic job. I mean, winning his first season is in itself phenomenal, and now he's built this squad. I mean, he's built. I think he's spent about the GDP of a small country now, but to get worse and stuff. But it's about time, because the likes of City and Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea are spending all the time, so it's about time they've had some good transfer windows, but they've not really spent much. So it's about time they caught up. And yeah, like you're saying, kind of lesser teams, Bournemouth, Brentford. I like seeing those teams up there. You know what I mean? I like listen, I support Dunfermline, so underdog story is weekly.
You don't need to be used to that.
And we get better, and I like seeing them up there. Likes of Brighton, even though they're a selling club, they're still up there, which is fantastic. See,
yeah, Nottingham Forest were really good as well. I mean, I think the thing with Forest is that maybe they won't be as good this season, but they are pretty good at home. But I was quite interested in watching all games, the type of style of play that they were playing as well, because they were really exciting to watching the counter attack and all that type of stuff, and they were just guys like Murillo and everything there who just really, really good sort of signings. Man City obviously were a wee bit more disappointing, but they just had a spell of form where you thought, right, they're out the league, and you would never previous seasons ever write them off, even if they were 6 or 9 points behind you. I think they could just go on a heater here, but there was just a point where you're thinking they're absolutely nowhere near. And then but I was when I was doing my post on Fan Team, I was talking about Brighton all the time. And honestly, Brighton, I think I'm a
Brighton fanboy.
I think honestly, I think Brighton's recruitment is just incredible. Obviously we know guys like Maxime de Kuiper, Boscagli and stuff through Sorare, and they're not only just good players. Like de Kuiper, obviously plays for Belgium. You've got Boscagli put up really good scores and Sorare wise in the Champions League and everything as well. It was just a pain in everybody's ass from a scoring perspective, and it might not necessarily always translate in for FPL, but he's a really good sort of passer of the ball. And but it's just their signing is just incredible. I just think it's just got 500 million players, and it's going to be a bit more difficult, obviously, to maybe nail that. So
and that's the thing. that's a good thing about the switch over. Like everyone, we knew De Kuiper before anyway from like So Rare and stuff, and it does help you with other leagues. It does help you with knowledge. Before kind of I played So Rare, I didn't really know the leagues as good, and it kind of gets you into intricacies and who's going to what league. Because sometimes we get a bit of tunnel vision between like the Scottish League, the English League, maybe Spanish, and after that, no one don't really pay too much attention to Italian, maybe French. So it's good to keep your hand in. I've got a question for you, McBride, because you're the most popular guy. It says from Geddy. He's always here. Fantastic to see Geddy. Question from McBride Ace: where would Celtic finish if they joined the Premier League? I do, Mark, have the bottom 10. Do you want me to go to that before you tell us where you're going in? Or
well, I think. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sort of reading extra things. So, if Celtic were in the Premier League and had the resources, then I think we'd do a lot better. But as it stands just now, I think would be probably pretty mid-table. I think like Celtic do well in the Champions League, but sometimes we are relying on a decent draw, and then we don't have the resources to have stuff like squad depth or spend like obviously a lot of money on backups, or Celtic do spend a lot of money now on like sort of like project players that to sell on, but for us a lot of money, 3, 4, 5 million pounds on a guy who's 21, whereas in the English Premier League that's like like chicken feed. So if Celtic had the budget the English Premier League teams, then I think that they would be like a massive club in the English Premier League. But as we stand, I think we would probably be round about sort of just above, like round about sort of Brighton level, etc. I'm quite capable of beating any of these teams, but you're talking about consistency, playing all those like really difficult games over the course of a season, and there would be some guys in there who obviously you'd have to upgrade to go and play in a the most difficult top sort of league in the world. But we're capable of beating anybody on any given day at Celtic Park or whatever, like honestly.
Yeah.
But like I think in the English Premier League as the team stands just now, like away from home would probably get smashed a lot. That's the honest answer.
Yeah, like you saying, you got to be up for every game. And little known fact for you, outside the SPL, Dunfermline have got the biggest wage and budget. So we're up and coming. So we'll be there soon. We'll be there soon.
How do you think Dunfermline would do in the English Premier League?
I don't have slides for League Two.
Should we go down a bit more?
Yeah. So that was the top 10, the bottom 10. Again, is there anything that kind of stands as we go along? I've highlighted a few kind of parts. Anything that stands out for you? The first thing that stands out for me is obviously you've got the likes of Tottenham 17th, even Wolves. I thought they would have done slightly better, though the start of the season wasn't the best with Gary O'Neill, kind of in a big form, a big dip form that they went, I think, about 10 games without a point. West Ham, we kind of used them down there. And the bottom three, unfortunately, we've got into this run where the bottom, the three that come from the Championship are keep going down. There's such a gap. So my first question to you, Mark, really is this season, do you think that'll change? And did you give any of the sides from last season a chance of staying up?
I think like everybody was in the mindset that it was going to be really difficult for those teams. I mean, I think the team I would have given the chance of staying up was Leicester, because Leicester obviously for a while under like Brendan Rodgers were like top 6 team in English Premier League. So you think obviously okay they've went down, but maybe with that previous experience they can have a good go. It just shows you, I guess, how big the gap is. Obviously the main surprise there is Spurs. I mean, obviously being a big sort of Ange man myself for Celtic and everything, like he just like when he had all those injuries and stuff, he just went hell for leather. I'm winning a trophy. I'm gonna just focus on the League Cup or whatever. I'm going to focus on the other stuff, and for a lot of people they probably just don't comprehend that, because the English Premier League's so important, but he knew they weren't going to get relegated and he was saying I want to win a trophy. So seeing Spurs down there is incredible when you see that they're actually going to be in the Champions League this season.
I know.
Man United, I mean, obviously, there was a point where you're thinking if this form doesn't improve, you might actually be a scenario where they could almost be relegation for, and you just they're just,
which is insane. And the amount of money. I mean, don't get me started on United, but the amount of money they've spent over the past few seasons is astronomical. And to be down there, they're still a big club. They'll always be a big club, but it's it's pretty mental when you think about it. And maybe if it's the same with Everton, a big club, maybe if they hadn't changed managers, they would have been down. So
yeah,
I don't think that gap at the bottom three is as big as everybody thinks.
No. Who do you think out of the bottom three? I mean, obviously you've got some big clubs coming up this season, so like, but who do you think out of them could actually solidify themselves in the English Premier League again
this season?
Yeah,
I did think Burnley before they got the back line ripped up and the keeper who is so important to the way they play. Sunderland made a lot of signings. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. I think Leeds have probably got the best chance because either have been up there the most compared to the other two, so they've probably got the best chance, I would say. What about yourself? Who do you think's got the most chance of staying up?
Leeds were in my head because, obviously, I think back to when I was younger and stuff like that, and I remember Leeds used to be like a way back, Rio Ferdinand, Hugh, and all that sort of stuff, and they used to actually be like a Champions League team and everything. So in my head, I always think them a really big team. I've not really seen a lot of their signings, but I do think Sunderland signing guys like Adingra and stuff, I think they could be a sneaky outsider in terms of doing pretty well because they've already got some good players. Angelo Lafie's a cracking player, and if they get a good start or whatever, bit of confidence behind them, they've got a really good fan base and stuff like that. If they get a bit of home form about them, I think that they actually have a reasonable chance of staying up. And then I mean it's good. They're going to be up against it, but there's a few teams there at the bottom of the league who are just chronically underperforming and stuff. So if they just don't get a good start or whatever, then you could just see that somebody might slip into that again. So
what I will say on the Sunderland is well done on them for going for it instead of going, do you know what, we'll just kind of solidify what we've got. If we go down, we'll take the big parachute payments. Sunderland have actually gone, do you know what, let's have a crack at this. Let's invest some money. And kudos to them because a lot of teams just take the money and go back down. So I'm kind of hoping for them to stay up. And they've got a few good players, like saying Adingra. Didn't really get too much in Brighton. But Brighton, more of a selling club and more of a rotational club. But I kind of hope they set up. Giddy thinks Leeds might stay up. I think they've got a chance. Kieran says two of them stay up, Sunderland and Leeds.
Yeah. It's interesting who would actually go down then as well, isn't it? But you just...
Well, just look at this. It's like he's been on the show already. Look at that. He's linked that in. And it's linked into what Kieran said is bye-bye Brentford. Now, we will come on to them because he's got one view and I've got another view. Who do you think of that? So that's in terms of where they finished last season. In terms of goals, home form. So we're now going to go into home and away form. Home, again, for the people on the benefit of the podcast, top 10's rounded out with Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Villa, Arsenal, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Brentford, and Bournemouth. Pretty much the same 10 of what we had before. To come in the top 10 of Prem, you've got to have a good home form. Again, is there anything that jumps out at you, Mark? For me, is the Liverpool at home, just solid at home. 16 goals against at home in 19 games is Anfield. Listen, Anfield's a hard place to go. It will be harder with, unfortunately, what's happened this year with Diego Jota and his brother, and I think that will give them the extra thing to push forward. Similarly, as well, Arsenal down in 5th for home form. I thought they'd be in at least top 4.
That's a wee bit of a surprise, actually, to be honest. Because you think with them being up 2nd or whatever, but then I guess there was a point last season. I remember they put in a really, really good away Champions League performance. So, they beat somebody 5-0 or something. I think it was just maybe a style of play type thing there. It's interesting. You mentioned Brentford there. I mean, Brentford were always quite a fun team to follow at home, because obviously Damsgaard, Wisa, Mbeumo was always a favourite for everybody in FPL and stuff like that. And you always fancied that home Brentford might score 2 or 3 goals, but they maybe not necessarily keep a clean sheet, but goals for 40, they're up there, the best at home is 43. So they nearly scored as many goals at home as Man City. So they were just such a fun team. But I think obviously when you start taking out guys like Brian and Mbeumo, then it will all be down to how they replace those guys recruitment wise. But no major surprises, but as you say, Liverpool only being beaten once at home obviously was a big sort of basis for how they went about getting those points last season. So
Yeah, and like you're saying, it's a bit of a shock to see Arsenal down in fifth, but they only conceded one more goal at home than Liverpool. It's just obviously the goal difference in what games, they conceded more than one. As
Yeah.
well, the joint with Liverpool, 16 goals conceded or against, is Bournemouth down in 10th. Now, every time I see a big club go to Bournemouth, it's difficult for them. It's a really small stadium. I didn't realise how small it was. I'm pretty sure East End Park is bigger than it. What was it, about 11,000? 11,000? 12,000, something like that? If anyone in the chat knows, I think it's really, really small. And some top teams don't like that. They don't like the bit of the cauldron. They like a bit more space and freedom in terms of maybe fans being as close. And you can see that they've done really well. And again, it's good to see those clubs up there. Not mean the Bournemouth and the Brentfords. And we were discussing before that a lot of people think they've got a lot of drop off. I don't think they're going to have as much drop off as everybody thinks. Same with Bournemouth, really.
Yeah.
So that's the top 10. Again, there's no other shocks. Say again.
Yeah, signed a really good goalkeeper, Bournemouth, as well. I mean, he was like arguably the best goalkeeper in like League One, So like I think he'll do well there. And then obviously Nottingham Forest never conceded much, and Aston Villa were pretty good at home as well, So like, I thought they had a pretty sort of poor season, if that makes sense. But it just shows you maybe they've just set quite high expectations now by getting in the sort of Champions League and everything as well. Plus, they had to deal with Champions League, which if you don't have a big squad, it's a wee bit more difficult as well. When you get the fixture pile ups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that surprised me there as well, because I don't know why I have it in my head that Everton are quite good at home. You always think about Goodison Park, so you
come on to that.
You always think that somebody like that would be there or thereabouts in terms of actual home form, But I think there's a lot of draws and everything last season as well, So
definitely, and that kind of leads again. It's like you've been on here already, Mark. That kind of leads on to the end. I'll recap over the end, but we got a video coming up called pre-season preconceptions, and it's hard to differentiate between last season and this season. In terms of who they've recruited, who they've let go, their form in pre-season. And we kind of forget that sometimes and just go, for instance, Liverpool, yeah, they're going to smash the league again. It's not that, or Bournemouth or Brentford, like Kieran's, if they're getting a lot of the defence taken or the mid or one of the most important players, we have to kind of factor that in for the start of the season. But yeah, apart from that, there was no really big shots. It's good. Before the top 6 or the top 4 was locked out, wasn't it? We knew the teams that were going to be in there, just we didn't know the certain order. And now it's good that you got all these new exciting teams or newer teams that aren't as close to there coming up, and it makes for a good season, not only for people who are going to win, the top 2, top 3, the battle for Champ League, the battle for Europe. There's always something added extra to it.
And
so
Chelsea,
that's the top 10. Go on.
Chelsea, I mean, Chelsea beating Paris Saint-Germain are one of the best teams I've seen in recent times, right? And so being able to do that, they must come into this season with a lot of quite. Actually, the other day I had a wee flutter, and Chelsea are 8-1 to win the league. And I thought that's maybe a touch of value because at the start of that last season, nobody really would have picked Liverpool. And I know there's jokes they spend all this money and everything, but if they get João Pedro going and Palmer obviously keeps his confidence up, or actually somebody finishes his chances he's creating or whatever, they could be uber dangerous. And they'll come in with huge amounts of confidence, beating an amazing Paris Saint-Germain team. So yeah, they I think are a wee bit of value for having your wee 10 quid punt or whatever with Paddy Power. So
that's it, and we'll see that as we come into the fixture ticker that they've got arguably the best opening, and I'm quite bullish on Chelsea. There's flash. Kieran said Villa stand out, 1 loss, and it was against City in the 94th minute. Yep, they've done well, especially against the big boys. And we were asking about the stadium, Bournemouth, 20,200. I thought it was a bit smaller, but only slightly bigger than East End Park. Only maybe slightly better atmosphere. But yeah, so that's the top 10. Bottom 10. Again, everyone kind of knows where they finished, but you kind of Bournemouth, Fulham, Palace, Everton 13th, Man United in 14th, and Tottenham 15th. Again, if someone looked at this table, they'd be like, "What is going on here?" If you don't watch the league. Wolves 16th, West Ham 17th, and then Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton. The things that kind of jump out for me is the goals. The bottom 3. If you look at that there, a goal difference of -19, -30, -34, and the closest one after that, West Ham, was -11. All right, fairly close, but it's a fair drop off after that. -5, even -5. So, I mean, it doesn't take someone clever to say like you got to score goals and you got to concede less. Yes, but you can see the scale at the bottom three. If the floodgates are open, then they're just going to get battered, and then they will go down. You've got to keep games close, even if you're one up or you're one down. If you keep them close, you've got a chance of staying in the league. Apart from United and Tottenham, who had a shocking season, by the way. Tottenham finished even on goal difference, which is insane. And Man United finished with -5, which is not as crazy because they just couldn't score goals. Is there anything that stands out for you or anyone else watching the pod?
I always thought that like West Ham away was like a reasonably tough fixture. So seeing them like in 17's like a big like shock as well, Like so obviously they're playing quite a big stadium and everything. I'll be interested to see what happens with Everton, like whether they move to that new stadium or whatever is a positive, or whether actually lose some of that atmosphere that they used to get at Goodison, because it was quite a like old school stadium, right, and top of people, all that type of stuff. But I mean, not much else of a surprise, I guess, in there. But I didn't really expect to see West Ham down like so low. A lot of times I look at a West Ham fixture and I think, yeah, that's a reasonably tough away fixture. But last season it just really wasn't, to be honest. So
yeah, and I think, and again for this season, we have to factor in again that who they've recruited, who've not recruited. I dare say United done well. Šeško looks like he's about to come in. I think they've agreed personal terms, so it looks like he'll be in, which is good for FPL because now we've got too many strikers, and we know what to select with. Tottenham, even though they had a poor season, still broke even on the goal difference. So they've always got that firepower. They just need to shut up defence. Which, listen, I think Thomas Frank will bring, and he's already shown that. All right, beat Arsenal. It's a pre-season friendly. It's still a London derby. I know it's not in London, but you know what he's doing. You think they'd normally get battered 2, 3, 4-0, and he'll bring that defensive stability they need to then push forward, and they'll be well away from this bottom 10, in my opinion, next season. Yeah, the likes of West Ham though won't be. Go on.
Brentford were good at home as well, so you kind of got to look at like sort of playing styles and things like that, I think like Spurs had horrendous injuries as well. I think like if you put out their first team for the majority of the season, then they would also be nowhere near like that sort of point in the table. But it's quite interesting to like consider like, who's going to be the manager and stuff like that as well. And then Man United, signed Cunha, Buemo, etc. So like they even like sort of looking at them sometimes so rare, like people are actually putting up pretty good scores because they seem to be relatively solid at the back. So if they start banging in a few goals or whatever, get the crowd behind them at Old Trafford, then that'll make a big difference. But I mean, Angerim's quite interesting as well, isn't he? Because he's got his own way of playing and everything as well, which is probably, you would imagine, gets the right players, could be quite like exciting to watch. So
yeah, I mean, I've seen them. I can't remember who they played. Was it West Ham? I think they played West Ham the other day. Maybe Bournemouth before that. But I tell you what, it was like night and day. They were knocking the ball around. I was like, I tell you, I might start thinking they might finish in even the top half this season. Maybe. I mean, that's crazy talk, but we might get to that level. But yeah, I think West Ham, I think if anyone's, again, he's talking about having a flutter, I think the first manager to go, genuinely, I probably think will be Graham Potter. They've not really recruited that well. Listen, Fulkrug's a goodish player, but he's a bit old. They've let a few key players that done well for West Ham away, like Souček, players like that. Okay, they got exciting Juve at the back. That's all well, but I just think they've still got Arleola. I know they're signing a new keeper just now, but I don't think the squad's strong enough, and I don't think he's a strong enough manager to deal with the pressures. To be honest, I think they go down. I think he goes first, Graham Potter, and that's maybe the change they need.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of teams there who you think will still do pretty well. So that's definitely an interesting one. But still, it was 6th of August just now, so I guess it could like be down to who comes in, who comes out. I mean, the goalkeeper West Ham will link with, I think it was the Botafogo goalkeeper and the lad Suzuki at Parma, who are both like actually really quite good goalkeepers. So like something like that could just kind of tip it in their favour again as soon as they get a guy who, you know, instills a bit of confidence in the defence, etc. And then all of a sudden, you know, they start getting some points at home. Bowen just bails them out all the time and like that type of thing, you know. But yeah, they don't look as if they're like you would be that confident of them finishing top half or anything at the moment. So
no, but yeah, so Gary's a big Man United fan. He kind of agrees with me, which is good. Usually we've got different views, but Cunha and Mbeumo, Sesko is a good upgrade on Sancho, Højlund, Anthony. Yep, hopefully top half next season. And I think that's good that Amarin's. He's come in and he's stamped his authority and been like, do you know what? Rashford, you're not playing. Sancho, you're not playing. You know, if you don't have the attitude, you're not going to be part of my squad. And United have needed that for so long, and managers have just let it go and go and go until, you know, effectively the players were running it there. And Ronaldo, well, listen, people hate a winner. And Ronaldo's a winner, and he said it when he came in. He said, listen, the club's not getting ran right. People kind of turned on him, and he's kind of having the last laugh now because he was right.
Yeah.
Com says here, Potter before PE teacher at Brentford. Yeah, again, I suppose we've not discussed that. Brentford have basically got the set piece coach. He's now the manager. There's people moving everywhere. Thomas Frank's taking most of his backroom staff. So he's been stepped up. And then that is the thing that does worry me. I've been speaking to Kieran Discomfort about it, and it's either going to go drastically bad, and they're going to get battered every game, or it's going to even out. I'd like to know your thoughts, Mark. For me, I think it'll even out, but I think there's enough experience in the squad, leaders in that squad, that they'll take the onus amongst themselves, and I think they'll be absolutely fine. What do you think?
I think it depends as well if anybody else goes too. I mean, obviously seen some of the rumours of Wissa maybe going and stuff like that. Like, you see what Man United have done is they've brought in, like, obviously Cunha and Mbeumo, but they are like already proven English Premier League players. I think Brentford's model, like obviously when they were coming up, was they would, you know, they didn't really want to have like a youth academy or whatever. They would take guys who come out of other academies, sometimes take a chance on them, and they did pretty well with that. So I think what they might do is they might like buy some players, but it'll be more guys who are unproven in the Premier League, and that like can go pretty wrong. So, you know, like Mbeumo was like just like every season, like you look at him in FPL and you think he's one of the main guys you're considering playing. So he was obviously a consistent performer, and like for them to replace somebody like that, they could spend 20 million in somebody and they could come in and just do nothing in the Premier League. Like, so that you're right, there's a lot of risk there that they might just be pretty poor this season. So,
and then we move on to we've done home, so we look at the away, and again it's slightly different. Arsenal back up there in second. You know, we're down there in fifth for home. Again, for the people on the benefit on Spotify, looking at the away table, and it's Liverpool. It's the top 10. Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest in third, ahead of City in fourth. Brighton, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Fulham, Palace, and Newcastle. So Palace have kind of sneaked into the top 10 there, and so Fulham. And again, look at Bournemouth. They've got a strong home form, and they've got a decent away form as well. Is it quite interesting that Forest are ahead of City? I know it's close, but you wouldn't expect that, did you? I know they had a phenomenal season, but do you think that's going to repeat this season?
I think it's just kind of suited their style of play. Like, I think like when I watched them, like they were really good, like on the counter attack. So all the guys I had up there, Alanga, etc. Like, you know, obviously Chris Wood's not like, you know, but Chris would finish the chances. He would like finish a lot of chances, but there's a lot of guys who like obviously got a bit of sort of pace about them and stuff. Even Aina, like obviously plays a fullback, but like if you're playing like on the counter attack or whatever, he's capable of getting up the other end of the pitch, you know. So that is pretty interesting because again, I always regarded them as somebody who was quite like a tough team to play at home, but in reality, like they were actually like probably overperforming a bit in terms of their away results. So it's interesting to see that and just get that into your head and see. And again, you need to see what their style of play and everything is. Obviously, Alanga's moved to Newcastle now, hasn't he? So like, you know, you see who else the owner holds hostage in his interview.
blink twice if you need to leave. But Morgan Gibbs White, like, tell us if you need us to help. He's like, you're not going. He's like, all right, okay, it's fine, I'm not going. I'll try next season or when he moves on. But Arsenal got the best. Arsenal got the best away defence. 17 goals conceded. which is decent. But then, apart from the top two, the goal difference in terms of goal scoring against, 19 for Liverpool, 17 for Arsenal, and then there's a huge drop off after that. Forest have got 2, even City have got 8, Brighton have got 3. So you'd naturally want to see that anyway, but such a drastic drop off from one for first and second that again I wouldn't really expect that. Even from City, it shows that they've had quite a suboptimal season. Not that anyone surprised anybody.
Brighton up there as well. I mean, Brighton obviously must have been a sort of a bit of a kind of bogey team in terms of you think, oh, you're playing Brighton at home and stuff like that. But they did reasonably well away from home as well. 8 wins away from home and 5 draws. I think for them is actually really good. So
yeah, they did. So that's the top 10. Bottom 10 then is Villa, Brentford, Everton, West Ham, Wolves, United, Tottenham again, and then Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. Again, I don't think there's really too much to say about this. What the main thing that jumps out, and for some reason I did highlight some, but it's kind of not showing up on here. But you've got to look at the teams that were already on minus goal difference, and someone like, for me, Everton, they've not recruited, especially not recruited in the back line. The centre-backs, the main centre-backs, one hasn't played at all. The other one's played roughly, I think, 65 minutes. These are the teams, for me, you have to look at and think, right, we can't expect them to repeat this. And we have to have them lower down. The likes of his West Ham are in exactly the same position. But yeah, well, is there anything in that for you, Mark? I think these teams, Everton, West Ham, I think they're going to be closer to the bottom than we expect this season.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting with Everton because I know we're looking at away form here, but if they don't actually make that new stadium a bit of a fortress, then they could properly struggle, because I think it was something that struck me with the Champions League as well, because everybody used to slag Celtic's Champions League record away from home. And I remember one point they put up all the sort of information and there's not really anybody that has a good Champions League away record, right? You get the odd really proper elite team. But the away from home is hard, So the two things that strike me are, firstly, the English Premier League is really, really competitive. It's a competitive league, and also some of these teams who don't really have that good home in terms of home records or whatever, they could be in a lot of bother if they actually just slip a wee bit down because they might go to Man United and all of a sudden Man United are banging a few in and you're there's no result there, and so that type of stuff. They could get themselves into a bit of bother early doors if they don't get some points on the board. So
yeah, that's what you need. Yeah, to stay up, you need a decent home form, and again, I'm just kind of using stats to back up my position. But 19 games played, 16 scored for Everton. Leicester scored more at 18. That shows you they're in trouble. And okay, they've recruited that Barry lad, but essentially he's a Beto Mark II. I'm not saying in terms of quality, but Everton, they kind of hump it up. A big number 9, that's how they play. And I think that football is outdated and you get caught out. But we will see. I could be wrong. I've been wrong many a times, Mark, probably more than normal. So what we're going to do, again, we'll just go to the goals for. And again, just a really quick recap on these. But yeah, the most people, number one, I've scored the most, Again, there's nothing really jumps out. And it does go down in order. It is actually in order. So obviously the same, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Newcastle. Brentford jumps out. They're 5th, 66 goals scored. Anything else for you? I think City scoring 72, but still finishing not the best season, shows that the defence was poor or a lot worse than what people realised.
I don't think you would have had at the start of the season, as you said that Brighton would score more goals than Angie's Tottenham, then people would have just been nah, I don't think so. But Brighton were obviously João Pedro's now moved, so he's went to Chelsea now, but they've brought loads of sort of talented players and stuff, and I think I kind of see Brighton I think they'll be good this season, but I think they because they've got these more sort of really good defensive recruits, maybe it'll be more of a you want to aim for them for some sort of clean sheets or getting some some magic from the Kuiper, etc. So we'll see how they stack up in attack. But yeah, I mean, Brentford and Brighton to be scoring nearly as many goals as Newcastle and Arsenal is a pretty impressive performance, I think, from them. So
Yeah, and it's just again, it's probably not to jump out for me. You got Chelsea in 7th, 64. With the squad that they've got, and even though they didn't have the best season, they were still up there. And then you've got Bournemouth in 10th. And again, some people are tipping them to be down at bottom, but they've got good home form, good away form, and they can still score goals. Okay, 2 or 3 of the back four has been ripped up, but you've got people like Senesi. We were talking about Senesi before, who before he got his long-term injury, he was a starter. So they've got people to come back in, the likes of Hill, he's a good up-and-coming lad. I think they'll be fine, and they've got a good platform. It's not as if they're fully weak, in terms of Everton. Like home form, they're a nightmare. I think they're pretty solid. And again, with Brentford, okay, Mbeumo was gone. Granted, he's probably about half of that, but you can keep Wissa. Shadi performs a little more, and have 1 or 2 more adding to that. Again, I think those top 10 again. People on podcasts for the bottom are 11 to 20 for most goals scored. Is Forest, Fulham, Wolves up in 3rd, Palace, West Ham, United, Everton, Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. Again, bottom 3. But you look at United in 16th, 44 goals. Shocking. Less than West Ham, less than Palace.
Crazy.
Apart from that, yeah, is there anything else that jumps at you?
Yeah, well, as you were saying, obviously Everton don't really score a lot of goals. The bottom 3, they kind of take care of themselves. I mean, Man United, wise me, obviously, Andrew's supposed to be more of a attacking manager. So remember when Ten Hag was there or whatever. I think at that point, De Gea had he won the Golden Glove, he had the most clean sheets or whatever, and you think, all right, you bring in an Andrew, but yeah, they never really produced. But I think obviously with those guys coming in, being proven Premier League players, they will produce more goals. So I don't think you'll see Manchester United in that half of the goals scored side this season. So
yeah, and then what we'll do is with goals against and then goal difference. A really, really fast recap because we spent a good chunk chatting before we got to the fixture checker, which is good. It's great. Again, goals against Everton. I'll just touch out the ones that jump out. Everton goals against in 4th with 44 goals, and that's probably the only one that jumps out for me. Really, Mark, is Everton up in 4th, 44? That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arsenal were I think everybody was kind of unanimous that Arsenal were the best defence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really surprise me. And obviously, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Liverpool because everybody used to attribute a lot of the stuff to Trent. But if they start whacking out ping pong in defence, then I've seen him at Celtic, and he
use the term defender loosely
to run forward. So he's like another Pedro Porro. So there we go.
I think the good thing is they got a bit of balance. Kirkes on that side, he's a monster, and I think Robertson did lose quite a lot of ground last season. I can see them starting with Kirkes, to be honest, and Robertson kind of being not phased out because he's a bit of a legend of the club. Maybe legend's a bit of a strong one. A Scottish legend at the club, but yeah, he'll still get rest in that. But he's young up and coming. Second half goals conceded. Again, there's nothing really that jumps out. That's pretty much exactly the same on that.
Bottom 3 get absolutely battered, didn't they? I mean,
I'll go back there. You're right.
It's who's playing Southampton this weekend? That's where your whole selection thought process was. Who's playing Southampton the next couple of weeks?
Whoever plays Southampton, yeah. You get a 1-9. You're like, it's a banker. I'll chuck that on. Yeah, there's quite a chasm, but yeah, I mean the bottom teams have got to watch there. I mean West Ham on 62 conceded, Spurs on 65. That'll change, so I don't think people should worry about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Wolves 69, and then you got Leicester 80, Ipswich 82, and Southampton 86. They just got there was a time that they just get pumped every single game week. This just gives a goal difference, but we've kind of done the goal difference. But again, it's good to look back and recap at what happened last season because that's what happens, Mark. We forget, we put it to the back of our mind, and then we just have that reset of Liverpool walk the league. Or Arsenal will be close, and we kind of have to challenge those preconceptions, if you will. Now we're on to the fixture ticker. So what I've got here, Mark, is I've got the fixture ticker from Fantasy Football Skill. Again, if people don't use it, I'm not. What do you call it? I'm not repped by them. I just use it. I remember it's really good, and it highlights everything in there that you need. Gives you a good kinesthetic view, and kind of pinpoints where you want to attack. For me, the first thing I want to know, so I use this quite often. I'm sure you use it for So Rare or FPL as well. For me, I think the colour scheme is huge. Depending on what they set it to, is how you perceive that fixture. So in terms of let's go down to Liverpool. They've got Burnley in the dark green. Yep, that's fantastic. They've got Everton in a light green. All right, for me, I would say that's a light green. I think they're going to batter them. There's some preconceptions in there that even they have. They use an algorithm and stuff, but I think they get that wrong. Do you know what I mean? So they might have like a medium fixture, where in reality it's either an easy or a hard. Does the colours affect what you think?
Yeah, I think the brighter ones. I mean, obviously, you look at that and you think, yeah, Sunderland are the best team in the EPL. But it's quite interesting to think, because obviously you're looking at like things like lower price players and stuff, right? And I'd like in my head, I wouldn't really be thinking a lot about Sunderland players this season, but if they've got a favourable start to the league, then it's definitely worth throwing a few of them in. Because one of the problems I always have is, I pick all my team and stuff like that and think, yeah, we've got them like 30 million over budget. So you're like, oh, hang on, I can't have all of them. So yeah, if you can get a few of those in from those teams, and then even like, they are like, Tottenham as well, that's looks like a pretty good start for them. And as you said, with having like Thomas Frank in there, like some of those guys who you wouldn't really regard as like defensive type guys in previous seasons might actually be pretty handy, because they won't play the same as they did do under Postecoglou. So you've got to think about it seriously in terms of how it's going to pan out, not just what's happened last season, because that's relevant, but like you look at it after 7 or 8 games, and it happens in so rare as well, and new people emerge, new form emerges or whatever, and a lot of that can be down to just having some favourable fixtures or whatever. So
definitely, and again, for the benefit of the people on the podcast, we're looking at the fixture ticker, and this is suited for the first 10 fixtures. If you're new to FPL, I wouldn't go any more than a block of 10. I'd probably bring it down to about 6 to 8 max. You don't want to plan for any more than that, because you can't plan for that amount of games. It just evens itself out. But again, for the people listening to the podcast, we've got at the top, you've got Sunderland, you've got Tottenham, Wolves, Leeds, Forest, West Ham, Brighton, Everton. At the bottom, you've got Bournemouth, Newcastle, Palace, Burnley, and Man United. But I think that's something else when we pick our team as well, Mark, that there'll be some people in there you'd be like, why do I want them? And what we think is like, oh, you've got them for the whole season. But this season in particular, with so many changes, more transfers to swap in and out, this is going to be like a hop on, hop off season. So the likes of a Dingra, you were saying, I've got him in my starting squad, spoiler. And that's why, he's got West Ham, Burnley, Brentford, Palace, Villa. As long as he can keep a nailed 90-minute slot, I can see him getting assists and some goals. And the same way, like you're saying with Tottenham, I'm quite bullish on Tottenham. Like we're saying, Frank will bring that stability. And you got likes of Romero, who comes up and likes a header or two. Same with Van de Ven, he's a monster. With the defensive contributions, I don't know if you fully looked into that yet, but you get extra points for defensive contributions now. So I think more now than ever, it's important to have a look at these teams more for fixture ticker and who kind of concedes the most in terms of set pieces and stuff like that, because that's the key this season.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move from like FPL as well, because obviously like the pros and cons are like obviously like casual people can play and it's really pick up and play, but then we've seen like obviously an emergence of games where people want maybe a wee bit more depth. They don't really want to say, oh well, that guy played and they conceded in the 89th minute and they said he haul points, because he's actually played really well. He's dominated the game. He's had loads of key passes, or he's had loads of duels won or whatever. So yeah, I mean that's something I'll need to get my head around a wee bit more. But what you do find, obviously, particularly like on So Rare in a detailed matrix, is that it's very specific to fixtures. Like Nottingham Forest, for example, their form last season, they were playing a lot of counter-attack stuff. Whereas if you get a team who are like dominating the ball and pretty good in terms of like their intensity and duels and stuff like that, if start picking up those defensive points or whatever, then they could be really, really sort of valuable and stuff as well. So yeah, it will definitely like affect, I think, the strategy of what people have got. And then this thing with the extra transfers and stuff, so like there's extra ones coming in as like for AFCON or something. I did see that there's going to be like a wee bit of extra choice help that, and you've got like extra chips to play this season as well. Is that right?
Double the chips, double the fun, Mark. It's double. So yeah, it's going to change the landscape of how we play. There's a lot of people looking at bench boost. One, for me, I want to see some teams first, but it's good to get rid of the chip. But yeah, it's double chip. So people used to the first thought that when we got them was like, oh, we've made the game too easy. You've got double chips, but you want to optimize your chips every usage. So you still need to plan for it. It's not. If anything, we're planning more now actually. And like you say in the casual, what is casual these days? You've got all this information. You do a pod, I do a pod. There's so much on X. Before, when a man of age such as myself, Mark, that I used to call up the Sun Dream Team. And you used to have a code for each player. That was the struggle was real, mate. You know what I mean? There wasn't like, oh,
that's not why you were looking at the Sun, though.
I think FPL was on page 4. I think it was on page 4. But yeah, I think Geddy's saying in there, easy start for Man United. They've got a good record against Arsenal, and Fulham are shit. And this is kind of what I was saying, Mark, before, like preconception. So United, a lot of people are looking at Bruno now because he's having a fantastic pre-season, and he is a class player. And yeah, at first glance, you think they're right at the bottom of the fixture ticker. They've got Arsenal, Fulham, Burnley, City. But, a player like Bruno, I can see him scoring probably a pen against Arsenal or a pen and assist. And then if he does that, he gets someone against Fulham. And before long, you're thinking, do you know what? I need this guy in. And they've got Burnley against City. United, quite often I think, City are going to absolutely smash United. And they do, it's like a 0-0 or like a 1-0, really, really close. So with the defensive contribution as well, we need to start considering these players, and maybe Bruno's that unicorn that he has attacking and defensive as well. If we can pinpoint them and keep them in a squad for the whole season, that's going to shoot us up the ranch,
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that kind of jumps at you in terms of fixture ticker? Who do you think anyone think that they've got an underrated? They've got an easier, do you think they've got a harder?
Yeah, I mean, I think like my mind always just comes back to Chelsea just because of what they've done recently, and I think like I just think that Chelsea will be pretty strong this season. I mean, if you think like we were looking at those goals scored and all that type of stuff, and Palmer was like underperforming for a lot, but I think that there was games where actually he was doing good stuff and they just weren't putting the goals away. Jackson would made it.
Jackson, yeah, I mean,
but João Pedro's class, and if they keep guys like that fit, and they've got some rotation options there, obviously because they've bought pretty well up there, and they've also got really exciting guys. Like they've brought in that guy Esteval who was absolutely brilliant at Palmeiras. So I mean, it can be hard to pick their starting team sometimes, but I think that what they've addressed their issues that they had pretty well. So from that point of view, I think you can see them being right up there. And if they get obviously they'll be confident after what they've done. So you could see them just having quite a good sort of fast start there, and then racking up some really sort of good points and stuff. Palmer, I think, underperformed a lot, obviously, for most of last season, but I think he kind of underperformed his points because not just because he was playing badly himself, it just didn't really sort of work out for him, if that makes sense. So yeah, that would be quite interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, but I think, like saying, looking at him in the Club World Cup, he took those goals fantastic. It was literally one top and then top bags, top corner. So I was thinking, I'm not gonna. For the second half of the season, he hardly done anything. I remember was it the first half though, he was on fire. I was watching the Fernley game and I looked at my phone at half time and Palmer had scored 4 goals. I don't think I had him on my team. So, in fact, sorry, I did, but people captained him and I didn't. So, yeah, we got beat that day as well. So it wasn't the best day for me at East End Park, but yeah, he's a class player. Man City, have they made the mistake in letting him go? People say they don't. They have. They massively have. Because even when he came on, I think he came on a final. He always done well. He always scored. He got an assist. And all right, people saying the stars that they've got at City are too good for him. They've made a huge mistake by letting him go. And Chelsea are reaping all the benefits, really.
Yeah, he's a superstar. I mean, he's just and it's not.
And he's so young.
I know it's not established tournament yet, but you might look back in years to come and say, yeah, that guy's got a Club World Cup or whatever once they build the profile of that tournament. And beating PSG were taking that seriously, right? It's not like they were raging. They could beat it,
Luis Enrique was definitely taking it serious at the end because he was
raging.
he was about chucked in the jail. I think he was raging, and PSG lost their heads, and I think they thought they were going into the game. They're like, "Nah, we're going to walk over Chelsea." And I watched the game like you, and I couldn't believe it. Watched my little boy, and they battered them. They out PSG. It was phenomenal, and if they can repeat anywhere close to that in the Premier League this season, they'll be up there, like you say, in the bet for first. I mean, you don't know, like.
They were really good. They were really, like, that was the thing. Like, they didn't just like, Paris Saint-Germain were playing well and scored a few. They were the better team, and they really, really deserved it. And I think that was a marker down to everybody. Like, it's because they signed João Pedro like during the tournament or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, he's going to be coming in to play, and like he trained for a week or whatever, and bang, he just slotted right in. And sometimes you get that sort of cohesion with guys who come in and they just really suit like a team, or they suit the sort of style of play. So yeah, I think they'll. I never bought any Chelsea players in so rare this season. I bought them all last season, so it makes sense if they're class this season.
You missed out, yeah. But yeah, the people underrate like Colwell. I think not many people have got Colwell on in their FPL teams. I think he's definitely one look at. Cucurella is a bit expensive. He's one of the most expensive assets. He's $6 million. But, you know, he's fairly attacking, seems to get goals quite often, so he's good. And people have actually gone Sanchez. I mean, again, in the final, tell you what, Sanchez, he's got a lot of slating over the years, and quite rightly so, because he was being poor. But in that final, you can see why he got a move to Chelsea, because there is a player in there. He just took like 2.5 years to for it to come out.
To mature.
Yeah, if you can repeat it. What I will say is, before we move on to what AI is going to think for next season, for me, you know, I've wrote quite a few threads on this, and we'll probably do another video, is I don't think City are going to do as well as everyone thinks. Last season, it's probably the only thing I got right, is I felt City were due a big drop-off. And they were. You know, they got to the point where they're relying on people like Oscar Bob, who's 20. You know, that suddenly became such a huge injury, and they'd lost so much because of that. Class player, but the lad was 20. You know, people talking about, all right, they had a few injuries, but you can't rely on 20-year-olds. Same with Rico Lewis. You know, again, a very, very young lad. And the season before, they let a lot of key players go. Probably you might have had them so rare at some point, but like your likes of Mahrez, who used to come on when City needed something, a little interjection of attacking, a bit of flair, make something happen, and they let that go. And Alvarez, I mean, I know they got good money for him, but letting him go, you know, when Haaland's injured, all right, they're playing false nines. Pep can play anybody, I get that, but I just think they massively underrated how the rotation of their team. And now you look at the squad. All right, they've got likes of Cherki, I think, phenomenal. You probably had him in so rare before. He was a class. He is a class player. Even you look across that, and okay, you got Marmoush, you got Cherki, but after that, Doku doesn't do it enough for me. He can beat a player, fantastic, but his delivery, it's not all that in a bag of potato chips. You got Grealish, who's about to leave. You know, there's not as much in there as what I'd expect the City team to be. And the same as defence. People are raving about Ait Nouri. Good player, is he good enough for City? I don't think he's good enough for City. He's definitely not good enough defender, let's put it that way. Like you're saying with Porro and Frimpong. Going forward, fantastic. Coming back, I'm not sure about. And that then it leaves Gvardiol a little bit exposed as left centre-back. You know, I don't think he's the best centre-back going. What's your thoughts on City before we move on?
I think like obviously De Bruyne going, like, you know, De Bruyne like Premier League years is like, you know, one of the leading sort of mids as well, you know. So, and I know obviously towards the end he was a bit more sort of struggling with injuries and stuff, but like there was a point where Phil Foden was so good, and you're thinking, you know, like Phil Foden's going to take on that mantle, but he was like pretty anonymous last time. He's a class player, Phil Foden, but they just didn't really seem to turn up at all. So I mean, I guess like people said that Palmer didn't have a great season, but we look at what Palmer did, what Phil Foden's done. You like Phil Foden was just completely anonymous. So I think like losing De Bruyne obviously going to be a big loss for them in terms of somebody you can rely on just for those big moments and the sort of general creativity and qualities had at that like huge level, because it is a tough standard. There's no time you're playing against guys like Baleba at Brighton and everything, and like these guys are absolute midfield monsters for me. So you need to be on your game, you know.
Definitely. Coleman's putting the in the comments say, "Okay, Alan Hansen, you can't rely on kids." I said, "You can't win anything with kids, come." But yeah, I think there will be a bit of a drop off this season, and yeah, that's what we're talking about, preconceptions. That's why we covered everything at the start. A recap, because again, it reignites your little thinks for how the team's going to do, if they're going to do worse or anything like that, and it puts it a little bit more into perspective. Now what we've got is, like I said, we're sticking around again. Thanks very much. The AI. So we've got an AI model of where, the way they think the teams are going to finish for next season. In shock, they've got the bottom three as Leeds, Sunderland, Burnley. Quite interestingly enough, though, Mark, they've got Leeds bottom, Sunderland 19th, and then Burnley 18th. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because we've got Leeds the best chance of staying up. If you look at the points, though, they're a lot higher than they were last season. A lot higher.
Yeah, I think, as you say, I think what it's hard to factor in there is Burnley had a brilliant defensive record in the Championship, but firstly, that doesn't always translate to the English Premier League, and secondly, then they've lost players from that. So I think I would probably have Leeds above Burnley. I think Leeds have also signed a goalkeeper, right? So they were Mesley.
Yeah.
It's always a guy who I thought was highly rated, but he just developed into a goalkeeper who just had huge mistakes in him all the time. So if they start solving some of those things, I think they'll have enough goals in them to get more points than that. So yeah, I think it's still evolving, but it'd be interesting to see all the factors that AI's into account with that, if that makes sense.
We can't let the robots take over, Mark. We can't.
No.
It's like Skynet. We can't allow it, mate. So yeah, again, the people on the podcast, Leeds are bottom of 28, Sunderland are on 32 points, and Burnley are on 35, which normally to stay up is roughly about the 38 mark. Next positions is Nottingham Forest 17th with 40 points, Bournemouth with 43, Palace with 45. I mean, these, look how close these points are. Fulham 14th on 48, Brentford on 50, Wolves on 52, and Brighton on 54. Let's talk about the biggest thing that we can see off of that scale is Forest 17th, close to the drop. Surely not. I mean, I can't think that. The robots are wrong. That's what I'm saying, Mark. What's your thoughts on it, mate?
And then maybe they are taking into account transfers. I mean, obviously losing Alanga is quite important for them as well, right? I think he took some set pieces and stuff last season from memory, and obviously he had a really, really good season. So they're sort of working all that stuff in. I think Forest will do better. And I mean, I think when Forest are doing well is they go and they'll sign they sign Murillo, they sign somebody who's really good in Brazil, and we'll look at that and go, yeah, but it's Premier League. But you've seen with the Club World Cup that some of the relative strength of the leagues is, some of those guys are actually pretty good. So I think that their signings and stuff are okay. So I mean, I think if I was to tinker with that a wee bit, I'd probably have Brentford more down the 16th, 17th, and bump Nottingham Forest up. And then Brighton will be interesting. I think they might actually slightly outperform that, because I just think some of their recruitment has been classed. Matt O'Reilly last season was injured a lot and stuff, so they spent money on big players who didn't contribute much. You get Ferdi Kadioglu, who I love. I think he's a brilliant player. But
I've got him. I bought him from Turkey, actually. Yeah.
But then he was injured, so they're big signings, because for them 30 million's pushing the boat out, right? Those signings never made as big an impact because they had major injuries. So you add in obviously the guys who they have signed and stuff, then I think that they could outperform that. But it looks relatively okay. I mean, Fulham's an interesting one because they seem to do pretty well in the English Premier League most seasons, but then you could just see them having a bit of a sticky one, and just been just kind of not freshened up enough, or they aren't aiming to progress enough or whatever, and they're just they don't move forward, and then all of a sudden they're struggling a bit. So
yeah, they could do. They've not really reinvested much, but yeah, I mean, the interesting one there. You got Brentford staying up. Yeah, Kieran thinks that they're going to go down. I think Forest will be up there. Bournemouth will be further up. I can see the likes of Wolves being a little bit further down. And like you're saying, Fulham, they could easily get dragged, but you can see the difference in points or how close the points is.
Yeah.
From 40 and 17th to 35. It's 2 games. It's nothing. Yeah. So every single game is going to be interesting. So into the top 10 then. again, people on podcasts got Everton 10th. I think this guy next broke. They've got Everton top half. That's unreal. So they got Everton on 56. West Ham in 9th on 60 again. They've got them top half. Newcastle 63, so a bit of a drop off for them. Spurs on 67 points. Villa in 6th with 70, and Man United in 76. This computer is broke. Mark, what's your thoughts on these? I can see Tottenham 7th. I'm fairly happy with that. Newcastle, all right, maybe a bit of a drop off, but West Ham and Everton top 10, surely
not. Yeah, I think like Everton will struggle a bit more than that. I mean, I can see it with Man United because obviously, like you've got to take into account like that's the past seasons, but like because they've signed Premier League quality guys, then I think that when you add in those goals, then that could make a major difference because it's going to win games and stuff like that. So I could see Man United up there. I don't think they'll get anywhere near 5th, but I think that they'll be up there and sort of pushing the European places. Everton, I think, will be a bit further down. Newcastle could be a funny one because obviously they're in the Champions League, aren't they? So they did get the Champions League place. And if they don't invest in the team, one of the problems you see a lot is that you get those build-ups of games and they don't have, like, obviously the depth pieces or whatever to say, firstly, they've got an issue with Isaac. And then, who's going to really score goals for them after that? So if you start getting like a couple of injuries like Tottenham did, then Newcastle seriously could end up like bottom half just on the basis that they've got all these big fixtures to try and sort of juggle and stuff as well. So it could be interesting if they turn around their window. It's looking difficult at the moment.
And I've seen that Isaac's he's still training alone. He's not training with the team. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's trying to force that move through or what, but I think, listen, 150 mil to the Saudis, they're not bothered. They're literally not bothered. And I think that's the party line for them is it's up to us really kind of what's happening. I think he's trying to force the move through, and that's why his attitude or, he's not in with the team. But I mean, he's got another 3 years contract. Are they just going to let him play in the reserve for 3 years on that contract? Maybe they will, but I think he'll come round. I don't think he'll move anymore. I don't think he'll go. I mean, it'd be good to. I mean, it's pretty much locked in. The league's locked off if he does. Ekitike and him up top with Wirtz and Salah. It's pretty unbelievable.
Wirtz like one of my favourite players in world football. So,
Wirtz is only 8.5. He's 8.5 in FPL.
I think the thing is like he's a really exciting player to watch, but a lot of times, even with Leverkusen, he would have games where he was great, but never really necessarily produced a lot of goal contributions. I think the big question mark with Wirtz will be like when you've seen like Havertz was a bit of a star at Leverkusen as well. Amy never really adapted very well to the English Premier League, so will he be able to adapt to that? I mean, he's been great for Germany and everything as well, so you would have to think that he will, but he's a young guy and it's a lot of pressure, so I wouldn't be going too daft, but I'm looking forward to watching him play. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's going to be class. Com says Fulham haven't lost anyone, but I've just bought a backup keeper. So, yep, they're doing well in the transfer market. And Kieran said United Champions League, Salah non-top 5 goal scorers, Brentford relegated, the treble of dreams. Hope it comes in for you, Kieran. He's got some big views, and I like it. On to the top 4, what the AI thinks predicted for the 25-26 season. And for people on podcast, the top 4 is Chelsea on 79, Liverpool on 85 points, Arsenal on 88, and Man City on 92. Mark, talk to me about this top 4 because I can't see it happening. City win the league? Really?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got the pedigree for it, but I think that there'll be a few positions swapped there. I think like you have to fancy that Liverpool, after winning the league, they did really well in the Champions League group phases and everything, so it wasn't just like a fluke. And then they've signed really well, so I think that they'll be in amongst favourites. Arsenal, one of their main issues was like a lot of times, in fact, it was even like so early, you couldn't pick a forward. You didn't have one. It was like you couldn't put out a 5-man team, never had a forward. Whereas now they brought in Gyökeres, and he's got a guy with proven goal scoring record, so they're starting to address some of those problems. I think Chelsea will be uber dangerous this season. They're just like, just that they've got a profile of like young players who are like obviously quite athletic and they're good players and stuff like that. But now they've got that confidence of winning a major trophy and everything behind them, and everybody will moan about their overall spending, and it does seem ridiculous. But I can see them pushing on a bit this season. So yeah, I would probably flip that down a bit, and I think like Liverpool, Arsenal, and Chelsea would be my kind of favourite front three. But it's going to be really, really exciting because like what this will tell me is it's going to be really proper competitive this season as well.
Every single game, I think. Like you're saying, I think the added factor for Liverpool, I think their home games will be even more intense, and I think they still walk away with it. I think it's going to be a shootout between Arsenal and Chelsea for second, and I'll be honest, this is if City aren't careful, they'll be coming fourth. Genuinely, and that kind of raises a few eyebrows of people, but I don't think they've got the balance throughout the team that everybody expects it to be over the years and years of having great, phenomenal players, especially the backline. I think it's going to catch them out a little bit. So, but either way, it's going to be a fantastic season, and every game is going to kind of matter more. I know they say that all the time, but every game will matter more. On to my squad again. If hopefully you're still here anyway. If you are, just remember to kind of like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be fantastic. Always helps the algorithm, so it's really good. Now we've moved on to my current team. So benefit the podcast listeners. So I've got Sells and goal, Van de Ven, Milinkovic, Virgil van Dijk. We'll play 3-5-2, and then I've got Palmer, Rodgers, Wirtz, Saka, Fernandes. That midfield is naughty. Then up top, I've got Pedro and Watkins. And on the bench, I've got Kinski. He's just 4.5 fodder. You could change him. Pinnock, quite cheap. Rodon and Sharif again at 4.5 fodder. Mark, talk to me. Good, bad, indifferent? 3 out of 10?
Yeah, I quite like it. I mean, when I was doing my own fan team stuff, I quite liked Nottingham Forest's like initial fixtures. So I think I had actually like a couple of them in there for my fan team version. Van de Ven's an interesting one because you don't really usually think about Spurs defenders because of like the sort of recent memory. It looks really good. I mean, like with that, I would make a complete and utter arse of it because like what you've done, like you've like got a lot of your strength on the pitch, whereas like I'm too casual for FPL. I would find myself wild carding in week 3 or something and just make a complete clown show of it. But I like if that's the way you want to do it to get a good start, and as you said, obviously this season you've got all the different sort of chips to use or transfers, and like no Salah and no
I know,
either. So but I see the João Pedro pick. I mean, like he was brilliant. Like for the minute he walked into the Chelsea shirt, he looked as if he was on it. And I think he actually brings a big benefit to Palmer, because I think Palmer like just underperformed a lot just because he was like doing good stuff and like Jackson just made a mess of it.
just shoot with his eyes closed is the Jackson method. I think that's what it is. But yeah, I think and for that fixture run, I could easily have a Chelsea defender. I think someone like Colwell, in terms of budget, I don't have any budget left on here, but I could probably downgrade Pinnock to like a 4. But again, it would make my bench weaker and have a Chelsea player or change him. But I think that brings enough balance. And Pedro, for the first 5-6 fixtures, who's going to be scoring goals at Chelsea? He might be on pens if Palmer's not on the pitch, or even so, he might take a few or whatever. So people could easily have triple ups. They could have, instead of Sells, you could have Sanchez as the keeper. But I'd probably prefer a Chelsea player. The likes of like Reece James, people forgot, who I think could be pretty exceptional. He's coming inside into midfield now. He's always scoring, and you could get defensive contributions as well. So and that's what you have to try and find. You have to try and find those players before anybody else and before they gets the word out. Yeah, there's no Salah on here, and again, I don't think I'm not going to start the season without Salah. This is not my final draft. He will have a drop off because he's got Wirtz now. He's got Ekitike in, who's also class. they've got a really strong side and they are going to share the goals around. But my other school of thought is maybe that gives Salah a little bit more freedom. Do you know what I mean? Before they still had a great squad, Diaz, apart from Nunes up front, and that might take a little bit of attention off Salah and give him the freedom to play. If anyone's seen the game last night or the other night, I seen on Flash Score his rating was a 10. I don't think I've seen anyone's rating as a 10, and even after it was like 9.8, 9.7. So he's still got it. He is still the king of FPL. So to go without him is it could be a little bit a bridge too far, Mark. But yeah.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite like, I mean, obviously I haven't picked with this because obviously there's been a few changes and I haven't really got my head around the defensive contributions and stuff. But that is a good angle, obviously. Like the game's changed. The same as like obviously so rare often changes like annually, and sometimes that's good to get your head around that because obviously you think like guys like Saka or whatever, and the things change from like the point of view of like their game time and stuff like that. Arsenal have obviously had really good young players emerge as well, guys like Nwaneri, etc., and that could affect his minutes. And then you've like teams like Man United. I think the big advantage this season is they don't have any Europe, so like I think that you can count on them to have quite a stable team. Whereas it won't be very long before you start chucking in like different fixtures for here, there, and the next thing and stuff like that as well. And obviously there's some teams there who have like the Champions League stuff as well. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'd like from that point of view, like I'll have a Haaland or a Salah in because I'm just never seem to get my captain pick right. But like I think like they're more reliable like picks, and obviously with the double captain points, you need to be consistently scoring a good amount of.
That's it. On both platforms. Yeah, I think that is the key. You could go without Haaland and Salah if you get the captaincy right, and then they bang. That essentially kind of covers it a little bit. But yeah, I mean this isn't the finished article, and it's not a kind of clickbait that it's no Salah, no Haaland. It's just to kind of feel it out. I mean, since then, there's no Gyökeres and there's no Šeško up front. So again, that comes in, now before we didn't have that many forwards. Now Pedro's moved, Šeško and Gyökeres. So where does everybody fit in? And it's going to be really, really important. I think a good point there that DB put up is Saka, no pens and bad fixtures. Saka can score against anyone, but I take his point. He probably won't be on pens. He gave them up a little bit last season. And if you think Gyökeres is going to come in and not want pens, any good striker wants pens.
Yeah.
So if that takes it away from it, it's going to take a lot from him. Whereas the likes of Bruno, he's still going to be on pens, unless Šeško maybe wants some. But no, Bruno's not going to have them. But yeah, what we'll move on to then is again, all we've got is we've brought the FDR back up, and all we're going to do is a quick little recap, more kind of for you and so rare, and see if there's anything that jumps out in terms of what teams you might attack, what players you might go for, or half team in terms of attack or defense. You're more versed than me. For me, I think we were speaking before. I like your Bournemouths. I like your Brentfords. I like the underdogs that people don't really rate, but actually will perform better than people expect. What kind of jumps out at you here, and what kind of teams or what players would you fill for your teams?
Yeah, I think it's definitely really interesting. I mean, obviously the top guys will be pretty popular, and like Wirtz was like huge amounts of money and stuff. But like Wirtz, I think is probably a wee bit trappy in general. Like always the FPL stuff up there. I think like Palmer's a much better pick than Wirtz because like Palmer, like good chances of like obviously creativities, like doing like set pieces, all that sort of stuff. Whereas Wirtz is a lovely player to watch, but that might not translate like quickly into goals and assists. In terms of looking at this stuff, I think like Tottenham will be pretty good under Thomas Frank. So I think the good thing on like Sorare, for example, is that I don't think Tottenham are that expensive. So people think back to the previous season and they sometimes price these teams in accordance with how they've done before or how their perception of how good they are. But like, obviously like Man United and also Tottenham will do a lot better than last season. It'd be hard not to, like, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you've got that. There's some guys at Brighton who are kind of priced like Sorare players, because people know that like De Kuiper and Boscaglia are really good. So they're pricing them more like Sorare players, but they were Sorare players in the JPL or in the Eredivisie. So, from that point of view, maybe like on platform like Sorare, they're maybe marginally overpriced at the moment. Chelsea, I just can't talk about because I bought a whole collection last season. They done hee-haw until I actually sold them. So I'm really annoyed about that. And then you've got like, Man City, like obviously the problem is like getting like the starting lineup right. I mean, like my frustration always in FPL, because obviously City are always relatively expensive, is just like I just can't bring myself to, apart from Haaland, obviously, but like out with that, I'm like, who am I going to pick? Because like I was going to pay like 9 million for this guy or whatever, and I don't even know if he's going to start or whatever, and they just become like all these kind of unpickable type players. So yeah, there's a lot of the guys there who, like, be like probably a bit overpriced. But like you say, if you like just go in for somebody like hardly anybody will be running like Sunderland stacks or whatever, So and on Sorare in particular, you get good save points and stuff like that, and they've softened it a wee bit in terms of if you concede 3 goals, then actually you don't get as much of a hit for that as well. So I think like you probably be looking for goalkeepers with good like goals prevented stats. Like Bournemouth, for example, are a pretty good team. Jordi Petrovic was absolutely amazing at stuff like that in League One. So somebody like him could be proper like gold dust, like in terms of that. Or even if you get like that guy from Botafogo goes to West Ham, he's a really good goalkeeper, him. So like he could be somebody who's putting in really properly good scores because he's a really good solid goalkeeper, good shot stopper, all those types of things. So there's a lot of moving goalposts, but you don't have to just wade in and just say, yeah, I'm going to spend 150 quid on X, Y, or Z. Like, if you want to put together a team for 100 quid, then I think you still have like good competitive chances. So.
Yeah, that's it. I think you want value for money. With anything in life, really, you want value for money, don't you? So you can't begrudge paying your City or those players that you don't even know if they're going to play, because if you don't, it's going to smash your team. Or even in FPL, if you're paying the premium price, like Gvardiol, 8 Nuri, like 6 mil, what's the point if they're going to sit on your bench, or they're going to come on and play 45 minutes because Pep's done some intricate play? You know what I mean? And they're quite susceptible to that because Pep is, Pep's Pep, and he does Pep stuff. A lot of the time it works. A small majority it doesn't. But yeah, you don't want that when you're playing either game.
Yeah.
And that brings us on to the last bit of the ending, mate. Listen, thank you very much for coming on. And you have to start making your team now.
Honestly, I've just been so bad. Like I was away on holiday, and then I did some of the fan team stuff, and then like Sorare's just like it's so front loaded obviously these days, and like the day I went on holiday, basically Celtic came out, so that took up about a week and a half.
We were talking. You're like, you're on holiday and spending all this money, right?
So I will do it, but I mean, I genuinely like, it's nice to get invited on stuff like that. So the reason I find this useful is because like if I do go in on the English Premier League, whatever, and Sorare, it's good to get my head around those things, because sometimes you can think, oh, I can't compete unless I pay X for that guy or Y for that guy, but that's not true at all. I mean, I think Division 1 Sorare last season, a Wolf stack won Division 1. Like a guy who had spent like 200 quid in a Wolf stack won like $2,500 because they won 4-0 on a Monday night or whatever. It's that type of league where like you can have a weekend where like there's a lot of 1-1s and stuff like that. Somebody smashes somebody up and you're going, what the hell is that guy doing up there with a Wolf stack? And even Man City, you hit the nail on the head. Like Man City are always the highest prices, but you've got to get that combination, not only get the combination of who's going to do well, like try and predict who's actually going to go on the pitch is really quite difficult as well. So like, teams like your Aston Villas or whatever who are a bit more like stable in terms of like key starters or whatever is always pretty good place to start, I think. So.
And that's like you say, and that's why we covered, excuse me, the fixtures that they're always going to have, you know, a bit of a peak or a trough, and it's about finding those peaks when you're in the troughs, that when they're either priced lower or in terms of FPL where no one wants them, you bring them in, and then they do shoot up in either value or cost, whatever. And that's, for me, that's what kind of gives you most joy. Is it's like playing Chapman. You're like, oh, I believe in this guy, I believe in this guy.
Yeah.
And then he finally makes it, and you're like, I always knew. You know, there's probably 100 players you've said that. It's like, I always knew. I seen him play. He was fantastic. And yeah, I think that's an important part. Again, thanks very much. If tell everyone where they can find you again on X.
Yeah, so it's just McBriday. So everyone's just basically at McBriday, so it's pretty straightforward, hopefully. So
yeah, so again, if you want to get involved in that, put that in. There's a link in the description as well if you want to get involved in that. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for making it through. Again, if you leave some comments, tell us if you agree with us. If you don't agree with us, I'm sure Kieran's probably already written a few comments because he doesn't seem to agree with me. But again, thanks very much for joining us tonight. We've just got a few others. We've got a league. If you want to join the Double Pivot Pod League, the code for the people on Spotify is 4 Delta 2 Charlie Echo. Again, McBride, you need to get in here because there was a few times this season.
That's the first league I'm going to go into. I was just taking a picture on my phone.
There was a few times last season where you were ahead of me, and I was like, I need to get my finger out because, and not in a bad way, because you were so passive. You were like, yeah, you're like, do you not play this? I mean, we met up at the
at the meet. Funny. It was after we'd done that meet up and everything as well, and you were watching lyrical about Salah. I don't think like just kept talking about Salah, and like I had captain Haaland a couple of times, and you were raging. I was like, I
was raging. Haaland got me off,
pissed off. So it's like,
well, hopefully that happened again this season. But yeah, again, thanks everyone who joined us in the comments. Com, DB, Kieran, Mike, Colm, Geddy, all of you again. Thanks very much. The pod will be out on Spotify tomorrow. If you need to look for us anywhere, again, that's all our links. So the Double Pivot Podcast on YouTube. Again, you can find me on there, FPL Veteran. You can find Kieran. He's on tonight, but he's on X as well, FPL Discomfort. And on Spotify, we're just down as Double Pivot. Again, Mark, thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully, we get another video because that was absolutely fantastic. It's good to have another Scotsman on. The dying breed. I don't think there's many of us.
Give me a shout here at a time, and we'll when it started because it's still a wee bit away, you know. Because even look at the Sorare stuff, you think, oh, you're not even back this weekend, and you know, there's obviously the Charity Shield stuff and everything. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and it's quite near the end of the window that the league actually starts. So I think there'll still be some movement here or there as well, which might affect things. So it's all pretty interesting stuff.
That's it. And last thing for me is look forward to our next video, which is pre-season preconceptions. There's a big one. We go through all the teams, talk about pre-season, who they've bought, who they've let go, how they think we're going to finish. Basically everything we covered tonight. So without further ado, Mark, again, thanks very much for joining us. And everyone have a great night. See you later on.
Night, everybody. Cheers.